What happened? Well, what happened? What happened is that I'm not Donald Trump's favorite person. And Hollywood wove me into a convo with the world's boot sergeant basket heads without prior warning after subjecting me to slaughtering blows. And the administration of the university superimposed and impinged voiceover overtones. This was a discussion about the nature of reality. Having grown up in a Jewish Holocaust survivors community, I know that people like David Wecht, who's a magistrate in Allegheny County, believe that children should be taught at a very young age about the horrors of the Holocaust. Well, I defer to his wisdom as a magistrate of the area. I disagree and disapprove. Things that can be said in favor of going about it that way are that it would educate children early, that we need to dedicate ourselves to doing better. But that's not what it does, and I'm not sure that's what its intent is to do. Instead, by raising fierce, horrifying questions, like about the concentration camp guard who was given an order not to shoot prisoners because the bullets were worth more than the Jews. Question an enormity, an extreme situation, unfit and unfair to subject children's minds to, in my opinion, gives rise to the idea that that is where we are throughout our existential dilemma. It's forever leading people to swim in search of the penultimate existential dilemma, like fish flying towards a brook, bouncing in the brook stream. If you look at the research of Menninger, you see Menninger Center, which was formerly in Topeka. You see that epigenetics was understood to be real. Epigenetics is exemplified by the fish tank experiment of mother fish who are pregnant in a blue lit bowl and another motherless fish impregnated in a red lit bowl. And then the respective children born into a dark tank, and then blue lights and red lights turned on, and the respective children of the respective mothers swim towards the respective lights, even though they've never seen the light. They swim towards the light of their mother's womb. That held the radiance in the mother's womb. So what we find when we look at epigenetics is that people are changed inborn. So many of the children that David Wecht is concerned about already have fear graven on their metabolisms, extreme situations graven on their metabolisms. And they start swimming by nature towards the creation of the extreme situation that created their fear. Fear and suffering as a maternal instinct, and it draws everyone with them. Instead, what we need to do is create environments that are soothing and comprehending, about the historic injustice and suffering and pain that the human race has visited upon itself in the tyranny of bias and incomprehension about the human condition. I've long argued that nature programming on Hollywood stations has misidentified purposefully the nature of reality. I saw two men tie up a lion and a crocodile and take them off to a remote and get them fighting. And this they called the nature of reality. It doesn't really speak to me. I see too many birds who respond to kindness, who are interested in one another. I see too many anecdotes about different trees protecting one another. And I've seen too many cautionary dialogues between would be antagonists resolved in the better schools. And I know that people can be brutish and criminal when it comes to going out shopping for people to fight, to abuse, to corner, and to frighten. And this cycle, this wheel of intent comes from Hollywood. It comes from the masquerade that somehow the nature of reality requires the gargantuan megalopolis complex to economize by taxing and taxing and spending on fossil fuel weapons of war, to elect Dudley Do Rights, whose only goal when it comes to foreign cultures is to subordinate them to the battle hammer. It can't be credited. It's impossible to credit or altogether to distinguish between the determination to do ruin of either side of the superpower arrangement. Superpowers should be about bringing blessings, should be about bestowing health and happiness on the people, not fear. What happened is that I was mongered into a situation of prove you can do it, queerball, by people who already knew the arguments and said, let's see you talk me out of it. That's the nature of Pittsburgh. It's the nature of a warlord regime. It's also the minority of people among us. Unfortunately, because of how pernicious their arguments are throughout media and in Hollywood, they manage to rise to the top. Sometimes they manage to get themselves in power and nobody can vote them out. And they're spoiling for conflict. What are you going to do about it, queerball? This is the sort of thing that the United Nations was built to engage constructively and keep an eye on, to prevent predatory superpower from getting unleashed on powerless people and saying that their justification is the right to subordinate people who they view as inferior. The United Nations has become more prominent because of the climate change movement and the crisis in the Ukraine. I believe very strongly that the UN Charter is the safest and best resort for all of us to engage in the search for peace and mission understanding. However, I live in the United States of America. The laws of my country are the laws of my country. I don't consider myself responsible, for example, for the condition of online pornography with which I am unfairly associated because of the ravenous acts of Mr. Paul McCartney towards me as a child who was involuntarily drafted and hot wired up into a superpower farce, a mind game, a mission statement. That's what happened. What happened was that I'm a poet, disabled. I was a dishwasher. I was a library clerk. I'm deaf. I'm deafness so disabled that my best friends can't speak to me, can't have conversations with me. I'm walled off. I'm walled off and uploaded into a pin-headed nightmare put together by Saul Brecker and Paul McCartney. They want to test the being mentations of the lackey who dreams of peace against the predatory iconography of the superpower mania. I can't do that. But that's what happened.